Welcome back, guys. I'm so excited to be here. I've actually been looking forward to filming this all day. I'm so excited. Today I'm dressed up as Aria from Pretty Little Liars. I've got the whole pattern clashing thing going on, and today we're covering a really highly requested topic, which is all about the complete wasted potential in Pretty Little Liars, and all the times it really felt like they were leading up to something and you're thinking it's going to be really big and have this huge significance to it, and then it was a dropped plot point and didn't mean anything. They didn't really incorporate Bethany and Sarah Harvey, utilize those two characters. It really annoyed me that they didn't meet Sarah Harvey in the dollhouse, because that could have been really interesting, seeing them learn from her, ask her questions, and either be scared of her or really believe that she's a victim just like them, because it would make her portrayal later on heart-wrenching and upsetting. With the version they did, it was just very lame and extremely predictable. It was so obvious she was going to be a bad guy. And same with Bethany, like, that was such a cop-out. We've been wondering about her identity for so long and nothing really came of it, and I still feel like there's a big void there and there's a whole lot of unanswered questions I have around her. Also, Redcoat is kind of cool. That's this person in a red coat they're seeking out.
You followed me here. That means you don't know who she is either.
And when I first watched the show, I was so confused as to whether it's Allison or whether it's A, or whether it's A wearing a red coat to make the girls think that Allison is on the A team. Also, Meredith, I always had an instinct would be really useful somehow, or would tie back to A, just to play a bigger role, especially in season 3 when she attacked Aria and was drugging her. I was waiting for it to lead up to something. It didn't lead up to anything, and again she just disappeared from the show and became a non-existent character. Such a waste. A lot of the romance subplots that were there lasted a few episodes and they were really good, but they were dropped, and they're the ones I actually wanted to see play out, but instead they were just in the same relationships for most of the time. I mean, I don't really like Ren. I think he's overrated. He's a bit of a douchebag. Okay, Aria as a character. I'm not going to talk about that because I've got another video about the topic where I go into everything weird about Aria's character, so I'll link that in the description along with my other Pretty Little Liars playlists that I've done. Ali taking flying lessons. There was even a whole episode where Aria met this guy called Duncan. And it could have been really interesting, but you don't even see Allison flying a helicopter in the later seasons, so that whole storyline is just ditched. Also, Noel, I touched on this earlier, but I wanted to know more about why he didn't like the girls, his role in the dollhouse. Aria came up to him and said, "Noel, I feel like, is there something I don't know here? Because you seem to have this vendetta against me and my friends. Like, did we hurt you? Please tell me." And Noel intentionally didn't answer her question and walked off to talk to his friends, and we never really got an answer. And Noel was made into the stereotype of the douchebag and the bully, but I really thought he would play a bigger role. Like in the earlier seasons when he was blackmailing Ezra and judging the relationship between Aria and Ezra, I really did hope and think he would report it to the police or to the headmaster, or even in later seasons do that, but that just never happened.
Did you see anything?
Who told you I was at the campground?
I saw you in the crowd when they were putting Hannah in the ambulance. I wasn't sure then, but I'm sure now it was you.
And that was disappointing because I sort of liked that he was getting involved with Aria and Ezra, and I mean, I didn't like him blackmailing Ezra, but he was right to think the relationship was weird and wrong, because it was. In season 5, the girls are still unsure as to whether or not they can trust Allison and if she's really their friend, and Allison, when she's cross with them, starts forming a new clique, a new army of girls, and I thought that this would be an ongoing thing and it would be two groups of girls going against each other, but then Allison ended up rejoining the group with the original Liars and being friends with them, and that was kind of disappointing to me, because I think when you're like 5 or 6 or 7 seasons in, it's so repetitive after a while and you just want something different and you want the dynamics to shift, and it really annoyed me how they kept going back to the same old groups and the same old cliques. That's why I always wanted Mona to join the main group, because it would have been so interesting. It would have been like a whole new show, completely revamped it, it. And when you're a TV show and you're going for absolutely years, you need to make it fresh or people are going to get bored and they're going to stop watching. So next, oh my God, where were they going with the NAT club? I thought the NAT club would be significant in all 7 seasons, and you'd find out in like season 3 that Ezra was part of it and he was a total creep. The NAT club was a bunch of guys filming underage girls and being disgusting, and I think it was Jason. I said I liked him with Aria, but I forgot he did that. That's really gross. Why would Aria date him then if she knew he was in the NAT club? Why would she date him in the 5-year time jump? Or like him at all? What? That's insane. Okay, whatever. She's got weird taste in men, we know this already. But it was Garrett too, I think, and it was Ian and maybe some other people. But I was always under the impression it would be this huge group of Rosewood guys who were all in on this disgusting club, and it would bring a lot of tension. I thought Ren was going to be a part of it.
Well, I didn't film any of those videos.
Yeah, but you watched them. How did you get that honor without doing any of the grunt work?
It was my idea. But like I said before, I was messed up. High school was just one big blur.
That's a genuinely good idea, like a bunch of creepy guys getting together. Those are very incriminating videos, and that's a crime. So if people find out what they're doing, they'll be in huge trouble, which gives them a motive to blackmail people, to cover it up, to lie, to kill people even maybe, to cover up what they're doing. But they just ditched that whole idea, which is a real shame. Garrett died. Ian died. Ian was ready to kill Spencer because he wanted to get his video files, and Jason lives and doesn't die. So why did that happen? Like, what was that about? Like, were they planning something with that and just dropped it? I don't know. This is a brief one, but why were so many people so scared of Melissa? And seriously, what was the deal with Melissa? Because it felt like they sort of rushed her development. In the final episode of the final season, you see her getting along well with Spencer in like one scene, and that's it. And she was awful in the first season. Horrible. There's a theme throughout the show of pigs, puppets, dolls, and masks. There was a whole episode centered around going to this guy and he'd made like a mask of Melissa's face. I still don't really understand what that was. I thought they were leading into something. Who was Jason hiding in his house in season 2? Like there were bloody napkins, people in the window. I think it's implied that it was Spencer's dad, but again, not quite clear enough for my liking. And those are the main things that personally really irritated and bugged me. There are loads of others, but those are the ones that genuinely stood out to me. And I was like, okay, there was potential there for it to be made into something bigger, to be carried on throughout the show, to tie together, that I did really want to be explored fully, but it was dropped. So next we're going to talk about 10 things I would change in Pretty Little Liars. If I had to choose 10 things specifically, no more, no less. And the reason why I'm sort of putting this in the same video is because I feel like it's very linked, because it has a lot to do with wasted potential and stuff that really could have made the show better. So it all ties back to the show's lost potential. I'm not going to mention really obvious PLL stuff like the A reveals and Spencer's twin, because that list goes on for too long. The first thing I would change about the show, the number one thing, I would bring Mona into the group in like the 6th or 7th season, probably the 6th one. Mostly because the biggest issue with the show is that it was clear they were running out of ideas in the final 2 seasons. And I think by making Mona one of the main liars, you would really solve that problem and bring a lot more interesting scenes about a character we actually care about, rather than someone like Leslie Stone. And I like to see character development happen, even if it isn't realistic. I want to see it, and I want to see friendship dynamics change so it doesn't get boring. Seeing the gradual transition could have been so fascinating, and I really wanted to see the girls judge her at first, but then realize, hey, we're more similar than we realize, and then slowly start to open up to her, slowly start to get to know her and realize they really like her, and maybe Mona could open up to them about some personal stuff and they could see that she's not this horrible person she appears to be. Then they could bond and be really good friends by the end of it. And it also meant, again, I'll link those videos in the description, but I always wanted Aria to be AD along with Allison. It's a really unusual theory people don't talk about and haven't really understood, so go watch those videos. It could be bittersweet, but it wouldn't be too horrible, because then Mona could join the girls and become one of the main liars and almost take Aria's place, and more like there's hope for the girls and a positive future awaiting them. And it annoys me that the girls were so cold towards Mona, because they forgave Ezra for doing far worse things, in my opinion. They forgave Caleb for doing stuff, they forgave Toby, and and yet they couldn't find it in themselves to forgive Mona. It annoyed me that at the end of the show they're still icing her out, treating her like shit, acting as if she's this awful person, even though she did so much for them. She was genuinely trying to help them at points. Even earlier in the seasons before Mona was revealed as A, the girls knew that Mona was Hannah's friend, but yet Mona would come and sit at the table with them, and the girls would completely ice her out. They'd be so rude, they'd get up and leave, which is exclusion. You could kind of tell they might be friends eventually, but yet that never happened. I also want to say that I liked Hannah's character the most when she was actually seeing the humanity in Mona and understanding that Mona wasn't in her right mind when she was doing those things.
I want to know what I did to make you hate me so much.
Mourning the loss of her friend, visiting her in Radley, not screaming whenever Mona came into the room. I mean, it was still really bad. Like, even Hannah was not good at points, but she did try harder a lot of the time to include Mona. After the Dollhouse episodes, when the girls were going through that trauma together, I'd hope they would bond with Mona. Number 2, the second thing I would change about the show if I had to change something is I'd spend less screen time on boring, irrelevant characters like Talia or Johnny, and instead answer any plot holes or explore topics that are genuinely interesting and need exploring. So I'd answer stuff to do with Cece's reveal, like why was she visiting Mona at Radley? I get why she visits her, but she needed a visitor's pass, but she was already a patient there, so that's really confusing. Cece said that she was annoyed that the girls were happy Allison was gone, which I thought was such a tacky excuse for hating them and doesn't even make any sense, so that needed to be explained better. How was Cece prom queen? She didn't even go to Rosewood High. That whole thing with her ex-roommate didn't make sense. If she loved her mum so much, why would she send Allison a video of the mum getting buried? Why didn't Cece just tell Allison who she was? She was Allison's sibling. They were hanging out all the time. They were best friends. She could have just said to her, hey, I'm your sister. That didn't make any sense. And why was Allison the way she was? I remember that one scene when it was a flashback. Allison turned up at Spencer's house, teary-eyed about something and really upset, and I wanted more details about what had happened to her. Board Shorts, Eddie Lamb, Varjak, Maya's death. I'd make that link to the main plot and spend time exploring actually interesting characters who we know and care about, like Jason, Mike, Melissa, Mrs. De Laurentiis, Maya, and Noel, who had so much mystery and potential. The whole concept of the dollhouse was honestly amazing, and I had a viewer comment this. I can't remember who it was now, but someone said basically they would have watched a whole season being trapped in the dollhouse. I wanted more of it to show their anxiety, their boredom, seeing A toying with them and doing nasty tricks on them. And also it was a bit of a cop-out with the whole 3 weeks later thing, because I actually wanted to see what happened to them and experience it with them. And Byron mentioned his brother a lot in earlier seasons, but what happened to that? That went nowhere. What happened to Emily and Toby's friendship? I wanted important and interesting stuff to be explored and boring stuff to just not happen. The third thing I would have done is I would have fixed Emily's storylines and really focused on her as a character. She's known as the boring one, and it's not fair because she shouldn't be. She's one of the main characters. She should be one of the best characters, and she's not. Season 3 was okay for her because there was this whole mystery around, oh my god, what was she doing that night at Allison's grave? Number 4, the fourth thing I would change about the show if I had to change just those few specific things is that I wouldn't have Aria and Ezra end up together. I'd introduce a new love interest for Aria, or I'd have her end up with Noel and make him a better person, or maybe Jake, but Jake was a little bit boring. I would have him get caught and I would have him suffer the consequences, and no, I'm not sorry about that. There are so many people that might watch the show and end up in an extremely dangerous situation with a teacher because they think it's okay, or they're soulmates, or they really do care about you. Let me tell you, 99.999% of the time, they don't. They're a predator. Some of the other characters like Mona and Mike were genuinely interesting. Every single scene was just Aria and Ezra being the show's favorites. They were having the same repetitive problems and the same, we'll go public about our relationship. Oh no, we have to hide it again. She should have ended up with someone else. I'm not going to apologize for stating that opinion. The only reason you probably like her with Ezra is because the actors have chemistry and Lucy Hale looks older than her character because she was older than her character, or you like them because you never really saw her properly date anyone else, so you think Ezra is the only good person out there for her because we haven't experimented yet. Number 5, I would get rid of or address properly the inappropriate and predatory relationships in the show because there were too many of them. Garrett, you had stuff with Ezra, Ian, Ren, even Samara, I think I found out recently, was way too old for Emily. So those age gap and predatory relationships needed to be addressed. They were involving themselves with minors. What have they got in common with a 16-year-old or a 15-year-old? Nothing. The victims would be blamed. Like Spencer was blamed by her whole family for that event. Ren got off scot-free while Spencer was blamed for kissing him. And there's a message sent to the viewer that Aria and Ezra are in the right and everyone else just isn't getting it. And that's reinforced by Ezra saying stuff like, people don't understand us, you know, I know it feels to other people so wrong, but to us it feels so right, and I won't let them take this away from us and make it into something gross, because it's not. And that really bugged me because it was so manipulative. I hated that characters like Liam would say to Aria, hey Aria, I think your English teacher seduced you and he's a creep. And Liam was made out to be the bad guy when he was right, or Noel was made out to be the bad guy. To be fair, he was blackmailing Ezra, but his point still stands. Or the parents, especially. The parents intervening was seen as this horrible scene because Aria and Ezra were kind of right. You had the whole thing with Toby and Jenna and Spencer's twin and Toby. Toby didn't even seem that traumatized a lot of the time, which is weird because you would be. If I was writing the show, the next thing I would do, the next thing I would change is I would modify how the writers handled and approached sensitive topics like addiction, EDs. Hannah was always trying to pressure Sean into sleeping with her, which was so messed up. And she was getting into these hissy fits about it and getting really rude about it. And Mona in turn was pressurizing Hannah, saying you need to hurry up and do it with Sean or you're not even a real couple. And it was disgusting. There needs to be a wider conversation here around consent. It was made out that Sean was doing the wrong thing for not giving Hannah what she wanted. Mental illness or mental disorders were not handled with sensitivity and compassion. Words were thrown around like the nut house and the loony bin, and even in the 7th season, I was hoping the girls would have grown up a bit, but they were sitting in Radley, which has been refurbished and redone up into a cafe or something, making jokes about mental illnesses or something. I don't know, they were just saying really mean things that weren't funny, but they were laughing like it was funny. Also, if someone has a mental breakdown like Spencer did, they're called the weak link rather than people having compassion for them. And oh my god, that intervention scene and the way they handled her possibly getting addicted to pills or just taking them too often and falling back into old habits was honestly addressed horrendously. The girls didn't apologize properly for that either. Have you been popping pills? Are you a pillhead? Or just saying some really insensitive comments like that and glaring at her and looking at her with disgust, like, how dare you, Spencer, you are gross, you are yucky. It wasn't coming from a kind or loving place. It was acting as if she was some weirdo and some outcast who should be ashamed of herself. Hannah's ED storyline isn't explored enough. It's just like, oh, she's popular now, she lost weight. Who cares? I guess it's over with now and she looks great, so fine. Also, Radley itself is very outdated and terrifying and creepy, so if you're having something going on, you would be scared of reporting it or telling your parents in case you're sent to somewhere like Radley, so it really stigmatizes speaking up about your mental health. Mike was really struggling with his mental health and that was dropped too quickly in later seasons. I didn't even really know what was going on with him and how he was doing. And also the way Cece was handled as a trans character was extremely insensitive because she's the only trans villain on the show, the only trans character. So that was the representation, which is so awful. She always loved wearing dresses and pretty things, but yet in the Dollhouse's prom, she's wearing a tuxedo and they sort of made it look like a guy. They were all acting like it was a guy and really quite convinced it was a man. I think they said it in earlier seasons, but they should have just cut it out in the later ones. The whole him, her, it saying took on another level of disgusting when applied or said in terms of Cece's character. Number 7, if I had to change something about the show, I would have labeled Allison as missing, a missing person, and not dead, because when you label her as dead, there's a whole lot of confusion, unnecessary confusion around who's in the grave and why were they so stupid as to think that it was her body in the grave when it wasn't. Are they really that dumb? Yes, it's a girl wearing Allison's clothes with her bracelet. So what? Like, realistically, I just don't think that would happen where you really would think that she was dead because that wasn't her body in the grave. The Bethany Young thing was really tacky anyway, and the writers didn't seem seemed to know what they were doing with that anyway, so just label Allison as a missing person. Number 8, I'd have the girls handle A little bit differently, keeping it from their boyfriends even though it was ruining their life. Just tell them. If Aria's worried about being blackmailed with her relationship with Ezra, break up with him then. Don't give A anything else to blackmail you with. Don't just break up with your boyfriends because you're worried about them finding out about A or being in danger, because then you're ruining your life. They would think their boyfriend's lives or Toby's life would be in danger. They would think A had held Dr. Sullivan captive and was going to kill her. If you really think A would go that far, if you think that A would take someone's life, then you should be telling the police or your parents 100%. You don't keep that to yourself if you really think this person is capable of going that far. Number 9, I would have had less A messages in the show overall and less A is watching us moments. It felt like they were treating the viewers like we're stupid. We know A is there. We're aware that A is watching. We're always constantly 24/7 doing our own detective work, trying to figure out which character is A. But you really take away from the overall sort of enjoyment of the show when every 2 seconds it's like, oh my god, B's in Ella's car. Oh my god, A gave Emily a massage. Oh my god, A left worms in their takeaway. It becomes cringy, and the more A was messaging them, the less mysterious A felt and the more over the top and lame and not that scary. So I would cut back on that. Also because it would ruin a really good scene, like in the Christmas special, the girls are eating dinner with their boyfriends. It's a really cute scene and I wanted the episode to end there, but instead they add on an extra 2 minutes of the girls going outside and seeing a message A left for them in Christmas lights, and it really brings down the quality of the show and it's hard to take it seriously. Not everything needs to be about A all the time. It's in the back of our minds anyway. And number 10, I would have had any boyfriend's involvement on the A team be better justified, have the consequences be actual consequences. When Spencer found out that Toby was on the A team, she forgave him way too quickly and started calling him her boyfriend, and they went back to normal like nothing had happened. And the dynamic of their relationship wasn't even different, but it should have been. It should have evolved from that incident. These are the boyfriends. They're meant to be good people, they're meant to be on your side. Now, to be fair, I really kind of like the idea of Toby being on the A team. I kind of love it actually, but it needs to be properly explained and the consequences need to be there. So yeah, I'm doing way more videos of Pretty Little Liars in the future, so make sure you subscribe. I'm tier ranking characters, I'm doing analysis videos, I'm talking soon actually about every single A reveal, what was good, what was bad. I just want to say a huge massive thank you. Every time I check, the subscriber count is going up, which is insane. I really hope we can hit 10,000 in the next few months. I know we can do it and I'm really excited because I just love the community we're creating on here. I love seeing you guys responding to each other's comments and I love doing these videos and it makes me so happy that you guys like them too. And I've got more Pretty Little Liars videos coming out, like I said, over the next few weeks and months. And also I'm going to do Gossip Girl, Revenge, the Barbie movies and way more. It's going to be a good time. The playlist, like I said, of my series for PLL will be in the description, and yeah, I will see you guys for my next one.